Get ready to hear about one of the most haunting unsolved murder cases of all time. Meet Deanna Kremen, a 17-year-old girl who had just celebrated her birthday when tragedy struck. On March 29, 1995, Deanna went out with her friends and boyfriend after school. She called her mother, Catherine, to let her know she would be a little late for her 10 p.m. curfew because she was watching a television episode with her boyfriend, Tommy LeBlanc. Tommy walked Deanna about halfway to her house before returning home to receive a food delivery order. But when Deanna didn't return home around midnight, Catherine tried to reach her pager without success. She figured Deanna was staying the night at Tommy's and that she would see her tomorrow. However, the next morning, Deanna's body was found behind a senior housing complex located less than a block from her home. Her body was lying on its back and was mostly undressed, and the autopsy revealed that she had been strangled and sexually assaulted. The news shook the entire community, and a few people were identified as persons of interest. Deanna's boyfriend, Tommy, was considered to be the last person to see Deanna alive, and Catherine noted that it was unusual that he had only walked her halfway home. Deanna's friends also indicated that an unnamed Somerville firefighter had developed an interest in her. A third man, also unnamed, was designated as a person of interest and was imprisoned for an unrelated charge. A fourth man was reported to have been seen around the scene of Deanna's murder on the night of March 29th, but was never identified or named as a person of interest. Despite new forensic evidence being identified in 2005 and an increased reward for information, no one has come forward to solve this case. This murder case is still unsolved to this day, leaving Deanna's family and friends desperate for answers. If you have any information about the 1995 murder of Deanna Kremen, please call 617-544-7167 or email friendsofdeanacremen@gmail.com. Let's help bring justice for Deanna and give her the peace she deserves. Now, we're delving into a bone-chilling unsolved mystery, the case of Angela Ford, a 32-year-old mother who was the presumed first victim of a serial killer. It all began in 1994, when Angela Ford went missing from her home in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Her family and friends were baffled as she was a devoted mother to her young son and had no reason to disappear without a trace. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months with no sign of Angela. Then, in November of that year, the remains of a woman were discovered in a wooded area off a highway in Greenville County, South Carolina. After months of investigation, it was confirmed that the remains were those of Angela Ford. She had been brutally murdered, and the perpetrator had yet to be caught. As the investigation continued, detectives started to piece together a pattern. It appeared that Angela was the first victim of a serial killer who had been operating in the area. The murderer had a preference for targeting women in their 30s and would often dump their remains in remote wooded areas. Despite numerous leads, the identity of the killer remains a mystery to this day. But the authorities are not giving up. With advances in forensic science and a renewed effort to solve the case, they're determined to bring justice to Angela Ford and all the victims of this heinous serial killer. If you have any information about the case, please contact the authorities immediately. Let's work together to solve this mystery and bring closure to the families affected by this horrific crime. We've just covered two incredibly disturbing and unsolved mysteries that have plagued the minds of investigators, family members, and concerned citizens for decades. The brutal murder of Deanna Kremen, a young girl with her whole life ahead of her, remains a cold case that has stumped law enforcement and left her family devastated. And the disappearance of Angela Ford, who is believed to be the first victim of a notorious serial killer, has left a community in fear and a family searching for answers. These cases are not just tragic, they represent the worst of humanity and the need for justice to be served. We hope that by sharing these stories, we can help keep their memories alive and potentially bring closure to their loved ones. If you have any information about either of these cases, please do not hesitate to reach out to the authorities or the contact information provided. Let's work together to solve these mysteries and ensure that justice is served.